Hi, Cath. Great to have you on board again. So this is the second time we've had you on board, which is brilliant. And I really do appreciate your time because I know you're really a busy person at the moment. So, it's great to have you on because I think listeners really like to hear about the different, elements of, what different businesses are doing, and especially yours.
Yeah, well, it's good to be back, and I have to say a lot has probably changed since we last spoke. I don't know, was it 2 years ago? But yeah, a lot has changed. So yeah, good to be here.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you. Do you know what? I think I would like to start from the perspective of, so, how I've been asking this actually of everybody because we're quite close to the end of 2024 and beginning of 2025. So we're in January. So it'd be really good to understand, how was your 2024? What were the big highlights? What are the things that you felt were, you want to put a spotlight on?
So I think for us, 2024, I think the thing that sums it up is probably evolution in terms of what we're doing, but also, and that probably comes from what the market was doing. And I think for a lot of companies in the market that had investment maybe 2 or 3 years ago, a lot of those investors were perhaps not as enamored with last year's performance as they wanted. And so what that meant was a real shift in how people were approaching their communications. They were looking at everything. And I love scrutiny. I absolutely adore it because I love, being able, the chance to explain what we do, to measure what we do, all those kind of things. But whereas previously, we've always done for years and years and years, we've done integrated campaigns where, although we say we're PR people, media is just a part of what we do. It might start a campaign, but then it rolls out because what we want to do is make sure that people drive themselves to your website and they start doing something on your website, which is the ideal situation. And what we found is the elements that people focused on more last year really shifted. So they were putting much more into the back end of that, the real lead generation of the stuff we were doing, and less on the media to some degree, depending on the organization. Um, and what that meant is it gave us an opportunity as an organization to kind of sit over some marketing teams with messaging that is highly fine-tuned, I suppose,
Yep.
for an audience to be really kind of juicy, and filter that more directly into the marketing team. So one of the campaigns that we did last year, it covered everything. There was some media, not loads, but the kind of whole content piece, the ads drove through, and they had thousands of leads, and we ended up increasing their sales by 275%. So it showed us that it gave us, we kind of knew that, our messaging was quite powerful, but what it showed us was that the proof that we needed to show that if organizations let us more closely work with marketing, the impact that you can have with that kind of, once you get the comms right, essentially. And so I think that was the biggest thing that we saw this year.
That is an amazing percentage increase.
Yeah, we're pretty impressed. We
Wow.
checked it about 50 times, I can tell you.
Wow, that is amazing. And so I know this is, expanding on this, but you've always said, I remember we've had a number of chats where you've gone,
Yeah, yeah,
need to get the story right. And
yeah.
is that what is that the reason behind having the comms and the right marketing, PR, was it about getting the right story in this case?
Yeah, because the client came to us, they wanted to sell X, essentially a service provision
Hmm.
for schools. And what we spent a lot of time doing is talking to schools about what they needed. And they didn't need the product, which was training. Essentially, what they needed was help with an issue with children in class. So all the content that we created was around helping with that particular issue. And there was lots of videos that we partnered with a charity to get videos from them. And it was just the whole combination. It's what we call flooding the market, so that wherever someone looks, your kind of brand is there to some degree with some really helpful content. And you start to see, and we've seen that in a lot of campaigns last year, a lot of sharing of content and tagging people in. So it's resonating with that audience. And yeah, so audience insight is really, really big for us, because it creates the best campaigns, really.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh wow. Well, if there's and by the way, we're obviously not high guns or trying to sell the product, but if there's any reason why somebody shouldn't be or should be engaging with you, then that is one.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. You'd be well pleased with that. Jeez. So, 2025. So, is there anything that is standing out for you? Something that you're really looking forward to, getting excited about?
I think for us, it's always looking and seeing what the trends are. So for us, the big thing this year will be better audience insight.
Hmm.
And so if you go out to this market, there's a lot of confusing information about what teachers or head teachers, or if you're in HE, lecturers or whatever, are consuming. So you'll get data that says, okay, X amount of teachers don't use Meta for work, but we know that through our campaigns that even though it's about like if they hit right, that they do really, really well on the Meta platforms, for example. So we know, and so there's a lot of data that doesn't actually add up. And so I think for us this year is to really hone down and create, I suppose, kind of almost like reports for our market, where EdTech firms or ed services firms can really understand, okay, if it's science teacher, are they consuming more video content? Do they want helpful content? Do they want this? Where are they going? And so that will be it's an ambitious objective, but we've got some kind of plans in place already for that. So that I think is a big trend. I think the other thing that the market needs to think about as as well as us thinking about it, and we're already thinking about it, is the fact that the way people consume what they want to know about businesses is changing rapidly. And I think obviously TikTok has massively helped with that, but also the way search is changing. So people might search for certain things on social, within social media rather than on Google, and Google is aware of that, so they're changing, what you see to be able to reflect that. But what it means is that if you're selling like a big piece of software for a school, the traditional way of selling that is, oh, how does this help you with this? How does this, a kind of like a real third party view of how it helps you. That is not the kind of information that this sector is really interested in consuming. They want people telling them just like it is, like if they were in front of them, this is the impact it's having, this is how it could help you. Or, a product manager going to a school and saying, okay, this is what I asked the school, this is what they're telling me about how they use it. It's really, personal, I suppose, almost like user-generated content, even if it comes from the company itself, just that style. And I think the more traditional is the wrong word, but the companies that have been around a bit longer, I think will find it harder to make that transition than the startups that come in straight away doing that kind of stuff. So I think that'll be interesting. You'll see a big shift this year. I think maybe the other thing is the attitude to like content measurement. And this year has been all CAOs got really, really hot on which marketing spends were delivering leads.
Yep.
Really, really hot, and which is fair enough. And we love measurement. Yeah, our reports are massive. But there has to be that kind of content that is just to understanding your audience so much that you want to help them for the sake of helping them. And I think last year that got lost a bit. And what happens when that gets lost is you just don't build your brand, trust in your brand in the same way. And so when you send the email asking for the product demo or to sell another module, people just respond in a much different way than they would do if you did do all the other kind of things as well. So I think, and you're seeing, we've had conversations over the last couple of months, and you're seeing a real shift that people have realized that they kind of need to do some of the other stuff as well. And so I think we'll see much more of that and much more intelligent kind of marketing and campaigns this year than we did last year, which was all about get me a demo, get me a get me a visit, get me a kind of thing, which is fair enough. But you need the other stuff as well, I think, to get more of the demos, the visits, yeah.
And do you think it's more important in education than other markets in the sense, because ultimately, you're talking about getting the data together, do more, so it's more targeted, your messaging, so you understand your customer base better. And then you're sort of saying that there's going to be more emphasis on relating. So in the sense of, being able to talk to a potential customer, but as if you're on their side of the table, sort of going, I understand your pain. I understand, your emotions or what's going on in the school. I absolutely relate to you. And do you think that's more important in education than any other market, or do you think that education is quite unusual in that sort of sense?
Yeah, I think for two reasons. One, I mean, marketing's hard anywhere. It's fun, it's bloody fun, but it's hard. And getting anyone to part with their money is difficult. I accept that. But I think education is unique in the sense that the time issue is and the priority issue is key, because I have to prioritize the outcomes for my children no matter what.
Yeah.
But also that creates I have to trust you to be in my classroom or in my school with my children as well. And so I think those organizations, you sometimes get people that come from other sectors. And I came from another sector like years ago. I was in telecoms and IT, but you come in thinking it's like other sectors, and it's not. The level of trust that you have to get it's harder work, but by God, when you get there, the word of mouth is great. And teachers were all, and you only have to spend time on any of the forums, like the head teachers forum, who's got someone that can help with safeguarding, and everyone's straight down there with the Bett, and it's the same brands that come up all the time, kind of thing. And so they're the ones doing the work really, and having good products as well. But yeah.
And you also made a point of offering more almost, so going the extra mile effectively. I think that is quite important. I think that comes back to that trust piece, I guess,
Yeah.
in the sense of, I think sometimes, and it's not because they do, but some companies look like they're just trying to take, I suppose, and get the sale in. And then there's other companies that are trying to relate to educators and go, actually, do you know, I'll help you no matter what. Obviously, there's a service or a product at the end of it, maybe, but actually, am I explaining myself very well?
Yeah, no, and a company that does that well on a kind of smaller, but not a smaller level. I'm just thinking about because my mind was in big product sales, like software sales. But if you look at Twinkle, they're always offering free content, and it's just they do well as a business because they've just got that relationship with their audience. And then we were talking about understanding your audience. If you look at some of their feeds around, say at the end of summer when they're around, putting up your displays in at the things that you need to think about. And they're not necessarily helpful. They're the kind of like the fun take on what you're doing and things. So they're relatable, I
Yeah.
suppose. And I think that works
Yeah,
for
cool.
them on their products, and then different products, it would be a different style kind of thing.
I really liked the way that you sort of said, you talked about trust as, it's one of those things in education which is harder to get. Because I don't think I've ever explained it in that way, but it's absolutely correct. It is harder to get to that point of trust, but when you get
Mm.
there, then you do benefit heavily because you're right. I think word of mouth is massive in education. So
Mm.
yeah, that's a really good way of looking at it. When we're talking about 2025, so we've just started, we're in January. So last week went to Bett. I thought it was a little bit different this year. So my view at the moment is, it felt, I don't know what it felt. It felt a little bit smaller in my view. I'm wondering, who it serves in the sense of does it serve the bigger supplier, the smaller supplier, the medium-sized supplier, educationalists? Does it, I'm really, I'm trying to, I'm probably trying to digest my thoughts
Mm.
on it at the moment. What do you think about? What do you think is?
So I think the Bett marketing team do an absolutely brilliant job of creating FOMO around their event. They are absolute experts at it. And so you get a lot of companies, new growing companies. I have to be there. I need to be there. I want to be there. But they go for a year or two and they drop out. And a lot of the kind of more medium-sized companies that we work for have found that investing in their own events
Mm,
and or going to kind of more smaller events. The same with specialist suppliers. They may be big suppliers, but they've got more of a specialist offering. They're finding the smaller events are perhaps better for them in terms of lead generation. I think so. Bett is brilliant for if you're Apple, you're Microsoft, all the big ones. Big. I think and if you're a startup, it can give you exposure. They've got that startup section, which
yeah,
is a really nice opportunity. People get to meet lots of potential partners, potential investors, those kind of things, which I think is brilliant. I think they've got a lot to do for that medium size or specialist business. That people I'm speaking to certainly, which is not, and I don't want to, I think also the team at Hive really know what they're doing. They have their strategy. So what I'm seeing is potentially, they know what they're doing.
yeah,
So it might be that they're not the people they want to attract. I don't know, but certainly that's the view I've got. And so if they do want those people, they're going to have to work hard at making those people think that huge investment is worth it year after year. And in saying that, I fully accept that Hive's job is to get people through the door. It is the exhibitor's job to get them to their stand. So
yeah,
you have to work just as hard, 2 months before the event to make sure people, if anyone's coming through the door, they come to your stand. That is not Hive's job, in my view, but they have to get people through the door, which they're doing. It's just, they're if the money comes from the floor, they're getting, in my view, they're getting probably a lot less from those medium-sized suppliers, really. So, yeah.
If you were, so you're advising anybody around bets, are there things, so number one, what reason would you go for in the sense of,
Mm.
is it about brand? Is it about, trying to increase sales or anything else that you would suggest? And what other consideration do you think suppliers need to take beforehand and during?
Yeah, I think if you're just going purely for lead generation, um, and want a decent sized stand, and you're paying for everybody to stay overnight potentially. it's a big investment, isn't it, to make sure you get your return on it. So, but there are companies that you just see that work it beautifully.
Yeah.
So they have events beforehand, they know it's for their international, the international side's quite big. So having like international visitors meeting up with that, they're making it an opportunity to meet with their partners, to have events with their partners. So, they get to have a couple of hours with them and build relationships, talk about potential working together, and meeting customers as well, that kind of thing. So, if you're a big supplier and you're not at Bett, and you've got customers going who want to talk to you, it's hard, isn't it? You need to find a way to talk to those people. So I think those kind of things it's looking outside of just throwing up a stand and expecting the leads to walk in.
Yeah. And I suppose you're right. There's a lot of work. I know that, the times when Bett has been exciting for me. I think I've been on the stand many, many times, obviously. I think the times when it's exciting is when you're right, when it's been prepared really well beforehand and everything's going like, clockwork, everything's slick. I think it's interesting because a lot of people focus on the differentiation potentially in their product. And they sort of go,
Mm,
well, my product's different because it does X, Y, or Z, this feature or that feature. But actually, I wonder how many people think about differentiation when it comes to marketing. Because you're right, there's a lot of messages out there going, we improve outcomes for children. You go,
yeah.
yeah, I
Mm,
hope we all do. But there's an element about that because there's so much noise, isn't there, around you all the time, and especially when you're at Bett, you're looking around different stands. Yeah, where's that? You almost want to have that differentiation in your
mm.
in your messaging or in your overall sort of approach to things like Bett. So that must be quite interesting.
But I think it's like all messaging. I think what happens is, and in marketing teams and everywhere, people think because we were taught in school to describe everything academically is probably the wrong word, but in this kind of dry descriptive way, that's exactly what we do when we go to write it on a stand or put it on a like email marketing or what have you. And it might have a great title, but once you get below that, it just suddenly goes bland. And unfortunately, that is one of the problems with AI as well, is like some of the content, it's just using that bland content to create more bland content. But yeah, that's, in some cases.
Yeah.
And so you do need to, we call it, say it like you would say it in a pub. And with messaging, you have to sparkle it up a bit more. But, you would never go to the pub and someone asked you what you did and you say we improve outcomes for pupils, and so yeah, it's understanding really what the impact is and trying to get that across in your messaging. Yeah, that's the ideal.
Yeah, absolutely. So you touched on AI. So AI was big at Bets, and that
Yes.
so many people talking about it, so many companies whacking that badge on, so many companies, who are really moving towards either, the sort of, I suppose, the generative AI piece, or looking at sort of a machine learning, whatever it might be. So where do you see good usage? Well, where do you see the usage of AI in marketing, PR, data extraction, or creation of that database and, all the things that you guys do? Are you looking at AI as yeah, this is going to be a positive, or do you, like you said, or do you think it's going to be something which is going to create bland materials?
So I was saying this to someone the other day. AI is like it's like having a toddler around. It does something new, and you're just like, oh my God, they put their coat on. I don't have to put their coat on or their socks on ever again. That's absolutely brilliant. And then you kind of rush to take them out the door and they absolutely sit there and refuse to put their shoes on. And you're the frustration grows, doesn't it? And so we do use AI, and it is brilliant in certain tasks. There are other tasks where, it just can't get there. And I think part of that is because it is based on what's already out there, and 85%, 95% of what's out there is fairly bland, sadly. And so what comes out of it, and we have, one of our team, Louise, has got these really long prompts that we use that are all, well structured. But when it comes to actually writing content, it just can't get that beautiful, I suppose, melody that you get with human color examples. And one of the things it does do, so one of the ways we do use it is we have to reuse content a number of ways. So we ask it, for suggestions of how to there's a few that are obvious, and then you get to a certain point, I can't think of anything else, and it will give you some ideas.
Yeah.
If you go the next stage and say, okay, write it, what it does is it takes all the beautifulness out of the writing and summarizes it and puts it words like innovation and business outcomes and things like that. And you could have an example, like Julia from our team's great at creating examples that are, a child that is suffering from X, and if you do this, and it'll take that out and say it improves children's outcomes, and take that beautiful example out. And so, yeah, its uses currently, and what worries me, I suppose, for bigger marketing teams that don't have, so I can spot AI writing at 20 paces, and everyone else can. They don't realize they can as well, because all the posts that you're scrolling over and not spending time on, they're all the AI posts, essentially. The ones that you're watching, the ones that you're getting to the end on, 100% are human written. I suppose it's having a marketing team that maybe isn't that skilled at writing themselves, or wouldn't be able to spot. So, obviously AI has gone into many marketing tools now, and that's great. If you're doing, 10 emails that you're doing 10% off here, and you're offering of a product like that, brilliant. It will probably come up with an absolutely amazing job, save you loads of time, phenomenal. But if you're trying to sell, like we used to work together on management information systems, if you're trying to sell that, they are good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck. And that's not saying it's not coming and it's not going to get better and the prompts will get better, and it's just that, yeah, it's absolutely phenomenal where it has the skills, and where it doesn't have the skills, you kind of want it to, so it's a bit frustrating. But then, what it does show this market though, and people wanting to make a difference in this market and differentiate themselves, is that by making sure that the good content is written by a human, the really important content, and the discount or the come to our event is written by AI, that's fine, that they will get a far better response from the market, because you'll stand out, essentially. So, yeah.
And I suppose, and this is a question, so in some ways it's really important to be careful, because obviously you can hit your brand, it comes back to that personalization piece that you were talking about, trust. And I think if everyone recognizes that everything you put out is by AI, do you think that there's an element of trust that you lose because of it?
It depends what the content is saying, I suppose. What you do lose is engagement, and that's where you build trust, is within the engagement. So like I say, people might start reading a blog or a post, whatever it is, but they're not going to get fully to the end. And that's maybe where your call to action is, or, those kind of things. So, we need to, I suppose what it is excitement and brilliance, but caution as well. Just make sure it's used in the right places, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we use it, quite a bit, but we always take the opinion it's going to give you about 70 to 80%, and then you
Yeah,
have to rewrite it.
yeah,
So, like you say, it's a bit of a good head start, but
yeah.
you know what? You're going to have to basically rewrite or personalize it, put it into your words, because
Yeah.
I think AI is not very good at necessarily replicating you as a person. So, yeah.
And I also think it's great where you've got that kind of writer's block almost, or, for brainstorming for campaigns for us as well. It's good. Like we did one the other day and we came up with our ideas and then put it into, uh, you know, AI. And it basically had the majority of our ideas, but it came up with, pop-up events, and we hadn't thought of pop-up events for that particular client. It was like, oh yeah, we could do it. And it turned out it was too expensive to do something like that anyway. But it's those kind of areas where it's really useful, or like I say, giving you ideas to rework things. And there's probably a million other, for us for presentations,
Yeah.
we want to say, okay, mock up a report that does this and some ads that do that, and we can do that pretty much with those once we check it hasn't changed all the spelling and everything. But the
Americanized.
yeah, whereas when we go to the real report, we'll obviously use a real designer for that, and the real ads will use a real designer because it's got to be good. But for mock-ups, it's really quick, brilliant, so.
Excellent. Ah, brilliant. It's fantastic. I've got one more question, actually. I've always wanted to ask, because you do so many things around marketing and PR and everything else, which are the bits that you really enjoy?
I
I know you enjoy all of it.
personally, I just love, I suppose you could call it strategy, I call it problem solving. So when a client comes to you and says, we need to achieve this, we think we need this. And quite often with us, they'll come in and they'll say, we need this, so we need media coverage that does this. And it's like, well, actually, if you break that down, do you want, once you start asking them questions, you realize sometimes actually what they need is something different to what they've come to you
Yeah.
for. And I absolutely adore that process of, helping them see what's going to achieve their goals. And that is my ideal. Yeah, I could do that forever.
So
So yeah.
problem solving and potentially the art of the possible as well at the end of that
Yeah, yeah,
process.
good friend.
Nice, nice. Kath, it's been amazing, and thank you very much for joining us. I know you're a really busy person. You've got loads going on at the moment. The one thing I would definitely say as a takeaway from anybody, just go back to the very beginning. If man, if you're not engaging with
Yeah,
yourselves, you might be missing out on quite a hefty percentage in growth. So I think that was an amazing stat. That is absolutely amazing, and congratulations. That's amazing. So, but a big, big, big thank you. Again, look forward to potentially having you on again. That'd be good.
it'd be lovely. It's good to see you, Nick. All right,
Same to
take
you.
care.
Take
Okay.
care. All the best.